All right, we'll let everybody kind of pile in here. Good morning if you're on the West Coast side of the world like me, or good afternoon if you're over on the East Coast, maybe even Central, right? Like I said, we'll give a few minutes to kind of get in here, and then we'll start rolling to make sure that we kind of get through everything. Want to first off say thank you to CNA for having me out for this webinar. Hopefully, you guys will take some good info from it and be able to take this back to any and all kind of workups or OSINT research that you may or may not be doing currently at your agencies. Um, should have a little bit of time for questions at the end of this, in case you guys have anything. If not, I'll have my contact info at the end, or if you think of something later, feel free to reach out to me at any point if I can help you guys out. That I could totally do that. All right, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. So a little bit about me. Um, Actually, you need to update this slide. I'm actually up to 17 years now with Scottsdale PD. For those who aren't familiar with Scottsdale, we're out here in Arizona. Scottsdale's just east of Phoenix, so we're kind of in that Valley metro area. Um, about 400 sworn, 250,000 as far as our population goes. That kind of fluctuates. Right now, since it's still kind of hotter than the depths of hell, people are still kind of avoiding Arizona, but about a month when it starts getting really, really nice, that's when everybody kind of comes back. And so those numbers tend to kind of go up. As far as myself working within our crime analysis unit, I've done tons of different cases. Uh, Started kind of on the property side, working burglaries and things of that nature. Uh, then I switched over to my current role where I'm at in our crimes against persons. So I assist our uh, violent crimes unit or HEATS unit or domestic violence and special victims units. So I've worked anything from bank robberies to homicides. I get to go out and do the fun like predator operations where the guys get to meet Chris Hansen type style things where they think they're talking to an underage person and obviously they're not. So those were fun. Had a lot of different cases, but obviously worked a ton of different things that OSINT research and things of that nature that are definitely needed. And if you've ever seen me before present, you know that I come bearing dog photos. So there's Parker, and Parker when he was a pup. This is what more kind of what he looks like now. He was best man at my wedding. Yes, we're those people. So, and that's him wearing his tie, looking super serious. All right. So as far as jumping in here, when we're talking about workups, so working up like any type of a workup that we have, as far as like quick checks or like full workups, making sure everybody's on the same page is kind of the main thing that I kind of try to stress during these. I'm a big fan of templates as well, so we'll talk about the templates that we use and kind of show you some examples so you can kind of see what that all looks like, and then really just kind of where to start, how to keep a flow going for it, social media stuff, and then just going down rabbit holes. And then we'll go into some resources. I'll show you some stuff that I like and currently use. It's ever changing and evolving. So, the stuff I'm showing you today might be great and it now, and it might not work tomorrow. So just keep that in mind as we kind of go through this. I always like to start this off too and kind of proclaim that I don't claim to know everything, and the stuff that I'm going to show you and what we're going to go over here is not by any means the end all be all to everything. One of the things that I particularly like about doing any type of presenting is that I always end up learning something usually while I'm doing this. So as we're going through these, if you guys end up having anything that you particularly use that works, feel free to let me know, and we can talk about that and make sure that gets out there, especially if there's stuff that you have that totally works. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Gonna skip that video. The audio wasn't working on it before, so basically, we're just kind of going down that whole rabbit hole of stalking someone on social media. I kind of joke that, for the job, when it comes to having to find somebody like that, that you're a professional creeper, which is kind of a fun term to use. But anybody that's already done this or been in doing this for a while, this pain when somebody comes in and just says, "Hey, can you do a workup for this guy?" And then you have to try to figure out what that actually means, right? Because everybody's definition is going to be kind of different. So the way that I kind of did it, I broke it down into kind of four different types, and you might see, depending on the type of job or type of crime, and the people that you're looking into, these could change, or you might have a combination or kind of mix match of all of these. So your quick checks, honestly, I would say a lot of the ones I end up doing tend to be quick check in nature. So they want to just go and actually contact somebody. So where can I find them now? What's a good phone number for them? Are they working somewhere? Something of that nature. Any current registered vehicles? Obviously, criminal history is going to be important because we want to know what their background is. And then some type of a recent photo. So you make sure that you have obviously what they're looking like currently. Address and association workup. So if, say, your SWAT team is going to be going and hitting a house, doing the research into the deeper dive, right, in who is in this house, who am I contacting, any type of threats that may be there. You figure out who owns the house usually pretty easily. Utilities, depending on where you're at, different checks of that nature. Obviously, criminal history on everybody that lives there because you don't know who you may be contacting. Digging into police reports and seeing other people that have been contacted that, yeah, maybe they don't live there, but it's, boyfriend, and he tends to stay there a lot, things like that. Any vehicles that might be at that residence, and then any type of possible layouts or pictures, maybe of the inside. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the tips and tricks that you might be able to actually get some of that stuff. Social media workup is exactly what it is, right? Any and all social media for your bad guy, and the stuff that they're just freely giving out to the world when they post and do stuff on social media. And family and friends obviously are a great way to get some of that if they either aren't very active or, quote unquote, I'm not on social media. They still are, right? It's going to be usually through somebody else. And then finally, the last one that I call the Infinity Gauntlet, which is that full workup. And that is kind of a collection of everything, right? If somebody says they want the full workup, that means, cool, I'm going to go through all of those and get you all of that info. It's going to be a ton of data to plow through. But my job as the analyst is to take that and make it usable. So kind of alluded to this before, but being on the same page when it comes to doing these and working with the people you do it in and out every day, it's huge, right? Because it's definitely something that can be frustrating for you as the analyst and them as the recipient, if you're not on the same page there. So since somebody might just want that quick check and they tell you they want a full workup and they don't really know what that means or entails, obviously that's going to take up a lot more time. So if you can be on that same page and figure that out ahead of time, that will set you apart in terms of kind of where you need to be. And the end goal, right? If they want to just contact them to interview versus full on apprehension, will kind of change the direction that you may go as far as how deep you're diving into this kind of stuff. And being realistic on your timelines. So that full workup where you're doing all of those different things, like you're not going to knock that out before lunch, right? You're maybe not even by the end of the day, depending on how in depth you have to go down that rabbit hole to try to find this person and find out everything about them. So making sure that they know if they have something coming up, not to wait until a day before and say, "Hey, I need all this info," because that's not going to be helpful for either person. And then I put this in really with anything, right? And not just workups, any type of product or anything that you're doing, excuse me, where you can get that feedback. And that's huge. How many times have you sent something out and you want to get that feedback and say, "Hey, how do you like this?" And all you get is, "Oh yeah, that's good. It works." Well, that's not really helpful. That's not giving you what you actually need in terms of good, honest feedback. And I think the biggest thing that you need to be able to do in this job is be receptive to that feedback. because especially if you get someone that can give you that good, honest feedback, it's not always going to be good, right? It's not going to always be positive. They might tell you, hey, this looks really cool, but it's not very useful because of XYZ. So yeah, there's an ego hit there that comes with it, but take that and use it as a learning experience and figure out a way, okay, how can I make this better then? What would I need to add to this to make it so you wouldn't feel that way? And just being open and honest with that, it's going to save you the time of, you could be sitting there working hours on this product to find out that they don't get past the first 2 pages. It's probably good to know, because why waste your time with the rest of it? Let's figure out how we can make it more useful and more efficient for everybody. So when we talk about templates, again, I like having a general template face sheet, and I'll show you mine here in a minute, that we use in our unit. It's important for continuity. We have multiple analysts that work within our agency. You may be the only analyst, but if you have others that work within your unit, the continuity is important, right? What you're putting out as a work product should look more or less the same. So then there's an expectation of, okay, I know where to find the data for XYZ in these workups. And even if you're the sole analyst, it's still providing that continuity and making it the same to where everybody knows where to go to find, criminal history for your suspect, or where the links are for all their social media, things of that nature. I think if at all possible, keeping that face sheet to one single page is going to be your best bet for a few different reasons. I think it is easier in terms of attention spans, right? If they see that thing is 100 pages, there's no way they're getting down to 95, right? But as long as you're putting the most important stuff that's on that front page, even if they don't get past anything else on it, at least the most pertinent information that you can provide is all on there, and they can refer back to it. So that vital type of information, obviously any type of active warrants, if they're going for apprehension, that can change depending on what the warrant's for, the way that they're going to go and tackle this. Any type of violence potential, especially, is huge for an officer safety standpoint. We need to make sure that the people that are going to be going and contacting this individual know everything that they can, and that's usually my biggest goal. Of I want you to know what you're walking into, so you're not going into this totally blind. Any type of gangs affiliation or status could be very important, and then links to social media, especially on the younger crowd. But even on some that are older, if they're super active on social media, that's a great insight into where they're at, what they're doing, different things that we can leverage later for information, even like later on in the interview process, that could come into play. So here's the template I was talking about. This is the one that we use, and it's pretty basic. It's a fillable Adobe PDF that we made, so then you can kind of tab through and be able to add all this stuff in. I did forget to add earlier. If you are interested afterwards, when you have my contact info, reach out. I can get you a copy of this template that you could customize and make if you'd like. That kind of has, takes the logos off and things like that, or you can use it to kind of model your own. I can also make these slides available too, to be able to refer back to later. So just reach out at the end, anytime afterwards, if you have any questions on it. So at the top, kind of have all your basic subject info, right? Their names, any nicknames, aliases, things of that nature, and then all their current contact info, right? Current address, current phone. I added in carrier. I do a lot of phone work with CDRs and things of that nature. So it's good to know the carrier, especially if we're going to have to go up on that phone to do any type of call detail records and things like that, or pings or anything of that nature you want to know. Same with vehicle, obviously having the plate and things of that nature are going to be huge in being able to locate. Picture field, I actually keep talking about it. I need to actually probably expand this into 3 photos instead of just the 2, because I like to do usually a driver's license photo, a booking or social media photo, and then if there's a vehicle photo. Um, one thing about Arizona, I know it's a little bit different in every other state, and it's changing now here in Arizona with the whole Real ID thing going into effect. But prior to that, your driver's license were good for, I think it was like 40 years. So you're supposed to update the photos, but nobody really would do that. So you could have photos that you're looking at, 20 plus years old, and they probably don't look like the same at 40 that they did when they were 16 when they got their driver's license. So sometimes those could be super dated. Obviously, booking photos are great because we know exactly the date that it was taken. Social media, as long as we're all on the same page, realizing that the date that they publish whatever photo onto social media isn't always the date that that was taken. Obviously, people can upload photos whenever, but if there's video and things that make it look like it's current, that could be a great updated photo. And then for vehicles, I'm a big fan of trying to grab like LPR photos, so license plate reader photos through either like a Flock or Vigilant, where you can get, okay, here's what the car looks like. Even if the color was wrong, when it described it, I know what it looks like now. I know what type of identifying features in terms of any type of damage or bumper stickers, broken window, something like that, that would make this vehicle stand out. So I'll put all that stuff in those picture fields. The information field, think about this as like a expanded notes. This is where I'm going to be putting all of that important information that we talked about, right? They have a current warrant out. If there is a high violence potential based off of their criminal history, going to put all that stuff, big capital, like, hey, known to carry a weapon. Every single time that they've been contacted, they have a gun on them. And then any other types of summarization, think like bullet point style, quick to the point, not a whole story. Because as you can see, there's not a ton of room for this. One of the reasons that I like using this PDF is the text itself will change and modify based off of how much info I'm putting in there. So if I have a ton of info, it's going to be a lot smaller text, which I don't want it to be too small where it's just a cluttered mess, but I still want to make sure that I'm getting the relevant info in and out on there. This is also the area that I utilize for links to social media. So I will put that on there. And then when it's PDFs, it hyperlinks. So the nice thing from there is they could literally just click on those and, take them right to their Instagram or the X account or YouTube or whatever it is that we're putting in on that. And then the last part I put on there is just a resources check. Again, it's kind of one of those things to help prompt some of the questions, especially if you're working at a building where maybe the detectives that you're assisting or your SWAT team or whatever it is, it aren't in the same building where they can't just come over and ask. This gives a quick and easy way to show what resources you utilize. So on this, these are a bunch of ones that I use in my own agency. So like you might have some other ones that are your go-tos. It's a checkbox, and then the drop down is either attached, negative, or NA for not applicable. So that way they know, okay, did they check leads online to see if there was any pawn activity? Was there LPR checked? Did they check our DOC for anything on them? They can literally just refer back to this instead of coming to me and saying, hey, did you run for any warrants? Yep, it's right there on that front page. Doesn't mean you're not still going to get those questions from time to time, but it's kind of a good barometer to see if they truly actually are looking at your work product. This is just another example. I got a buddy, a fellow analyst that works for Gilbert PD, which is out here in Arizona as well. This is his template that he let me use to share here. And you'll notice it's very similar, right, in terms of the layout. You kind of have that subject info up at the top where it has multiple addresses, which aren't always a bad thing, especially if you're not sure or they're between a couple different addresses. You could have those listed in there, showing any multiple phone numbers. You could have the guys that have the burner phones, or they use a voice over IP number in addition to the actual real phone number. You could list all of that. If they work and have a work number, you could obviously put that as well. And then same kind of thing in terms of check boxes of here are all the things that they're going through and actually checking, and did they find anything or did they not? Simple, just yes or no. There's only one spot for photos on here, which I mean, it is what it is, right? I don't want to take up too much space. If I need to add additional photos, I'll usually just throw an extra sheet on a blank sheet that just has the photos, or if there's other occupants and here's my main suspect, page two is going to have all the other people that live there. And it's going to be very just here's a picture and here's some quick info on them. Since they're not our main subject, probably not going to dig super deep into them, but I'm at least going to give a quick background so we know who we're contacting. And that cites the source, which also is also helpful, gives you the date. Additional info, that's their kind of uh, notes field that they have for that. And then who created it and the date is important because, again, if it gets forwarded on through other people and they don't know who actually created this and they have questions, obviously your name needs to be on there somewhere where they can actually go back and see that. And I didn't show that on mine. You probably saw it down at the bottom right here is where we have a drop down that has all of the analysts and we just pick who created it. Okay. When it comes to these templates, the last little piece on it, your eye naturally gets drawn to the photos. So even though there's text and other things, you're going to see the pictures first. That's, makes it stand out. So make it large enough to be seen, but not too large where you're wasting a bunch of space, especially if you're using, something cut out of social media or say a surveillance photo or even a body cam snip. Make sure that you're actually cropping that to show kind of the main field, right? You're going to have a massive photo of backgrounds and other things you probably don't need in it that aren't going to look that great when they're resized. So think about cropping those so it's focusing on kind of your main areas. One thing also that I had underneath the picture fields was a text box. I'll usually cite whatever it is that I got that source from or whatever the identification number, right? So if it's a driver's license, I'm going to put the driver's license number along with the date that that photo is from. So we know when it was. Or let's say it was from their Facebook, the Facebook profile uploaded on this date. So then it gives some reference as to how old of a photo that we're looking at. Arrest ID, things of that nature, whatever photo you're using. And if it's a car, I just put the plate typically, and that way you have that in there. I already talked about having who created it, when they created it, any and all contact information, and then keeping enough space in there to be able to have, again, if they're only going to get past page one, what type of info do I need to make sure that it has, and what other stuff can I put maybe in the back burner a little bit, if you will, that is still good info, but maybe not as vitally important. All right. When we talk about getting started, we're going to go actually be, in it and try to go find this person. One of the things that I like to do before I start really doing my digging is, if possible, I'm going to take some time and actually get briefing from either sergeant, case detective, someone who already has a lot of info on this case, and kind of make sure that we're up to speed and I know everything that's going on and what we're looking for, who we're looking for, and why. If you don't have that, I would say the next best thing you could do is to start reading the initial report. That gives you obviously some good insight as to what's going on. The other thing that, if you have access to it, I would highly recommend that you're getting access to body cam footage. I can't tell you how many times I've gone and actually just had that going on in the background while I'm digging through and listening to some of this, where I'm catching info that didn't make it into the report. Body cams are awesome. They've been, tremendous in giving us all of this new type of data. But the one thing I've noticed over my career in looking at in the way that it's advanced is it's made the report writing really, really suffer when it comes to, because the reliance of the body cam footage. So I know some places that I've been told that they have some kind of roadblocks in getting access to seeing it. But I think it is worth the time and worth the fight to get in and make sure that you're able to see that. Because again, I've had cases where, we had a shooting that happened a while back where, as I'm watching through the body cam, one of our patrol officers is talking with the owner of this nightclub where it happened, And he starts going through the footage on his phone with our officer and is literally IDing all of our suspects that we're looking for. And I go pop down. I'm like, hey, did we know that we already have all these guys ID'd? And they're like, what are you talking about? And just from watching the body cam, and they're like, well, I hadn't even gotten there yet, because case detective is going to have, you know, a lot on their plate of things that they're going to need to do. Why don't you try to help in that process and get in and start making sure you know everything and everything that's going on? The biggest thing too is, when it comes to associates and other things like that, going through that body cam footage, you might already be familiar with some of these people. Once you start going in, start digging in the social media route, you could already go, oh, hey, I know that guy. That's his buddy, that was in this video, that, or it's his roommate or something like that, and already have that by the time you start digging into all of their stuff on social media. All right. As far as establishing a flow, like I have kind of a flow of the way that I go through these. So this is an example of, um, my bookmark that I have when I'm going through and doing a workup. And before you ask, yes, it is called Back Computer. If you haven't already figured out already, like, not only am I like a data nerd, I'm a nerd too. So I like to incorporate those types of things in there. So in my Back Computer file, when I'm going into doing these workups, it's kind of the, not even so much the order. I'm not that particular where I got to go through this the exact way, but it's more of just a reminder of my flow of, hey, make sure that you're going through and checking these systems and have it bookmarked. If you're like me, you have tons and tons of bookmarks. It's just a better way to keep it kind of organized, to have that go through and make sure that you have that and have it bookmarked, easy to access, and it just makes it easier each time that you go through, and then you don't forget anything. And it keeps that consistency there, like we were talking about when it comes to, you could even make it follow, if you're super strict in the way that you go through these, you could have it follow that same order on your template sheet as far as the check boxes, and then, as soon as I check it, I go on to the next one. you know Sometimes as the flow goes through this, it doesn't always go in order, and you're going to go start going down a rabbit hole, and then it might jump you into another system that you would have checked later, but now you're checking, because, let's say, they had a bunch of pawn history. Maybe you don't check for that until later on, but now you want to, because you already read a report where it showed that they got ID'd because of pawn activity or something of that nature, and you're looking for a current phone number, or a picture of their driver's license or something like that would drive you into that. So be flexible with it to the point, knowing that, you're going to have that. It's not necessarily going to go in the exact order, but at least you have it down there and you know where to go and how to access everything. As far as where to dig, when we talk about public data or like these data aggregators, Accurate, your TLO, your Clear, or kind of like your big ones when it comes to that. What's the IDI Core is a newer one that we were trying out, that, similar process. Like, all of these companies are data aggregators, so they're taking all of this data, that's out there when people fill out for, their, um, sweepstakes, or, prize giveaways, any type of signing up for, an account for XYZ, even at your grocery store where you get, your frequent shopper cards and things of that nature. They're buying up all that data, and then they're, using it to sell products and different things of that nature. So, when we're looking up for, say, a phone number, we can associate that to this person, and they've associated to themselves through all these different things. They're great pointer systems to be able to get you kind of going down the right path. The only drawback being, you don't know all of the sources that they buy them from. But there's so many that are out there, and these companies are so large. Like, I don't even think they fully know all of the different places that they're buying up data. And for the most part, I would say, in my experience, that, 95% of them they're getting all the same, and you see all the same stuff in there. But I do always advocate, if possible, and if, budgets allow and whatnot, at least have access to two of them. Because, let's say Accurate has an address listed, this is their current address. I go into TLO and look, and almost 9 out of 10 of those match, but then there's that one address that one of them didn't have, and it's like, oh well, that might be the new address because it's showing that's current here and it's not in the other system. It just gives you another way to kind of help spot check and go through that instead of just seeing running it on one and calling it good. It gives you another reference point to be able to show that. County assessor. So for Arizona, and I know a lot of states operate the same way in their respective counties where it's public data. You can pull up in Arizona, you go to Maricopa County Assessor. Maricopa County is kind of the main county of the major Phoenix area where I can go in and put an address and see who's listed on that address. I can actually go in and pull up the deed to the property and pull up all that type information. So that could be super helpful to take you down to see who lives where and who owns those residents. If it's a rental, obviously you're not going to be able to see that kind of stuff. But if you luck out, like in Scottsdale, we tend to have a ton of the vacation rentals, Airbnbs, and VRBO type things. They actually have to register those through our city. So we have a database that actually has that. So as part of my process, I'm going through and checking that on the address as well, because if it is a rental property and they use it for those purposes, like obviously we want to know that and know who to contact when it comes to that type of thing. And on ours, we get kind of a basic layout. It's not great. I wouldn't necessarily put a whole lot of stock in it because it is very basic, but it still can show you something. And then a lot of counties, also have their court records are public record as well too. So, I can run and see if, they had gone through a divorce or something. I could not necessarily, it's not going to give me any kids' names, but it will tell you if there are juveniles involved. So if you're trying to again figure out how many people may be in that house and you're not sure yet, you haven't found social media, but you want to try to see, okay, do they have children or anybody else that might be living with them? That could be a good way to check in going through some of those court records and seeing if that all matches up. Specific for Arizona people that are on this for Maricopa County also, and if you don't have this, maybe check to see. But you can actually look up the last 3 years in our county medical examiner, and we actually see if someone has died. So if somebody just completely fell off the map and I'm trying to find them and I don't know where they're at, I can go in and check that, and it's possible that they had died in a different city that wasn't in ours, and it's another way if we don't have access to that agency's data that I might be able to see that we don't really need to be looking for them anymore because they're no longer with us. So there's other search engines, if anybody's done it where they just run themselves on Google and it shows all of these other uh, types of ones, like I put thattothem.com, Spokeo, some of these other ones that exist where um, Spokeo is a little bit different because you actually have a paid service that you could use, but some of these free ones, verified.com, different things like that, where it says find out all the info on people and you can click on it and it can give you a ton of info. The problem is you're getting what you pay for on some of that, and it's free, right? So if you already have some other things that are pointing you in a certain direction and those sites help back that up, that's great. Don't, if at all possible, use that as your sole source of, okay, I looked it up on here and it shows that address, so that's got to be it. I'm a big fan of layering on all of that. So the more, when I can go back and say, hey, I think this is their phone number, and I get asked, well, why do you think that? And I say, because it came back to them in accurate leads online and a police report from last month. Okay, now I have 3 different sources there that I could say that I feel pretty confident that that's their phone number or that's their address. So it's not just one thing. Obviously, that's the best case scenario. There are going to be times when that's all you got, and you only have the one, and you got to roll with it. If it's what you got, it's what you got. But the more that you can kind of layer on there, the better. So as we keep digging through, obviously police data is gold, not just your own records management systems, right? But any type of shared data source. I have it listed as CopLink. It's called Crime Tracer now, which is a collection of shared data police databases. Lynx is kind of the big one that's out there now because it's free for agencies if they feed into the data on there. The other nice thing about Lynx is since it's through Navy NCIS, it actually has records if they got arrested on a military base, which they're the only ones that you're gonna be able to find anything like that out on. So that would be great. So checking obviously through your police data, Accurate Virtual Crime Center has a bunch of police report data. Leads Online has their real-time crime one, which is the same kind of thing. So there's tons of options. So hopefully you have at least something where there's some type of regional data sharing where you can access other agencies' reports. Kind of alluded to this, right? If someone's a frequent flyer and they've had tons of activity and then all of a sudden nothing, um, obviously check county bookings or whatever your jail bookings to see, make sure they're not already in custody. I've had that happen where, I'm already halfway through looking into this person and I go and run them and find out that they just got arrested a couple of days ago and they're still in. So now I check that first just to make sure, because that makes it a lot easier. If they got to go talk to them, they just got to go down to jail. That's a lot easier than trying to figure out where they're at. Checking DOC, making sure they're, not in prison if they have been in prison, state and federal. Every state's a little bit different. So some states are great about showing that and making it publicly available. Like you can go onto Arizona's DOC website and I can pull up all their info, where they were at. It shows even like infractions that they had when they were incarcerated, gives you release dates and things of that nature. There's some states that are only going to give you info if they're currently incarcerated, and it might just be basic, but it at least can confirm that for you. And there's some states that just won't share that, and you're going to have to try to go through other avenues to try to see if you can figure that out. Obviously, your criminal history type of reports and stuff are going to give you at least the confirmation of whether or not they've been through the Department of Corrections. So that the nice thing about the regional stuff is it's going to help, establish just are they still in your area or have they potentially moved on to somewhere else as well. When we talk about vehicle data, obviously your state and records are king there. That's going to give you registered vehicles, expiration dates, license plates, VINs, all of that nature. If you don't find one for your particular subject, if they're younger, we have Arizona State just south of us here in Tempe. We have a lot of students that come in and out our city. I'll run and check their parents and see, it's very possible that the car's in their name, they're just the driver. And again, if I can find that, and let's say they're even out of state, I can put the car in Arizona and the car's registered in, say, Colorado. There's a good chance that that's a car they're driving, even though it doesn't come back to them directly. Spouses, significant others, roommates, the other types of things, like where, going back to the um, police reports is another great. When can I put them in this car, have them driving this car? Even if they're, say, like an Uber driver, there's a lot of ones that I've seen out here where they can work as an Uber driver and then they essentially are renting a car that is just for Uber driving. Comes back to somebody completely different, but they're taking a cut of the shares that they're getting off of that. So you could have a car that they're driving all the time that has no connection to that particular person that it's registered to, but you maybe found it in an accident report. Or so, that's where the NICB database is awesome. If you don't have access to that, that is also free for law enforcement. So definitely get access to that. They are indexing all of the insurance claims, so you can get great info on not just the car, but on the person as well. So make sure that you're checking into that. Once you have a vehicle ID'd, obviously going through license plate reader data is going to be huge, because it's going to help corroborate some of the, okay, if I have them at this address and I've seen license plate reader hits through commercial data that puts the car right there or right in the driveway, or I think they live at this address and there's a flock camera that's right around the corner, and it seems like every day they leave the house at 7 o'clock because they hit on that camera every day when they go out. That's good info, especially for your apprehension teams to say, hey, I see this pattern here that on, Monday through Thursday, they hit right at this time almost every time like clockwork. And you could have somebody already kind of ready there to look for those patterns and meet them. Carfax is another great tool for us in law enforcement if you don't have access to, that is also free. I believe it's only free if you're submitting crash data and information. So that is the one caveat I will say. But if you have access to it and can get it, it's awesome. So and it's not just accidents. Most people think that that's all that you get in Carfax, but it also has service records. We had a homicide case from a few years back where the vehicle that we ended up finding and IDing was out of California. However, in searching through Carfax on that vehicle, our shooter just so happened to get an oil change in Arizona the day of our murder. So now I have an out-of-state car that I could put in our state on the day exactly when it happened. So gives you good indicators in terms of where that car's been and where it might be right now. So kind of already talked about this. I want to verify everything that I can, right? Looking to layer stuff up, not just one thing saying, okay, good, I found a phone number, good to go. And we're digging through this. It takes time, right? You're analyzing data. Read through those reports, especially anything that's recent, and see what kind of info you can get from it, what other data points that we have, or other kind of rabbit holes potentially, if you will, that you can go down. Associates, any vehicles, addresses, all that kind of stuff. The biggest thing I would say, don't be that guy or girl that just prints out a bunch of reports and says, here's your workup. I printed out all this stuff. That's not helpful, right? I mean, yeah, you did some work in providing all of those reports, but analyze it. We're analysts. That's our job. Go through it and actually give some actual summarizing of, hey, I read through all of this. Here are the key points for it, so you don't have to do that. Some of them are going to do it anyway, and that's fine. But at least you put out the info that you can. All right, when we're talking about social media, making or undercover accounts, the one if you take one thing out of this, if you're looking into people on social media, do not use your own personal accounts to be looking into these. We'll talk about this later, but there a lot of these, it is possible for your bad guy to know that you're looking into those accounts. So if it comes back to your personal account, that could be very problematic. And before I start on this part too, when it comes to creating any type of undercover accounts and things of that nature, make sure that you're vetting all of this through your respective agencies and legal departments and things of that nature. Check your policies. Some agencies have social media policies, some do not. Just make sure that you're acting within policies. I don't want you to create all this stuff and then you get hit with something later and you say, well, this guy on this webinar that I went to said it was cool, so I did it. Like, I'm telling you right now, I'm not authorizing you to do this. Make sure that it's okay with your agency. So when you're creating those undercover accounts, the first thing you're going to want to do is establish an email and a phone number, ideally that are not going to come back directly to your agency. So creating an email account, even if you can use just a Gmail account if you want, or you can go through like the Proton Mail if you want, a more kind of anonymous account. But making something that doesn't come back to a .gov account is going to be crucial on this. Most of these social media companies now, they require a phone number. I typically like to try to use like a Google Voice number or a voice over IP number that doesn't again come back directly to my work cell phone. I will tell you that there are a lot of these places now are getting smarter with that, and they're not letting you do what those numbers, because they know that it's a voice over IP. They want it to come back to the real cell phone. So if you can get around that, yet great, do it. If not, try to use a phone, even if they'll let you buy a phone, like a burner phone that's just a Wi-Fi only, that you could have a number where it's not going to come directly back. That would be ideal. Considering the gender that you're going to put on for this account, again, it's mainly guys that we're looking at, and so if for me, I pose on mine as a female, just in case if I'm going to try to follow this person, I don't usually use my accounts to actually interact with our subjects or anything like that. I feel like that, is more like full undercover work. So I do it more just to creep. So, but if I'm gonna have somebody follow, I'm gonna try to play the numbers and hope that it's, I'm gonna be a girl and they're gonna be interested in that and they're gonna want to follow back. When you talk about profile photos, don't just go off the internet and grab a random photo and throw that in as your profile picture for a couple reasons. One, in doing a lot of those cases where we're talking to these dudes posing as underage, a lot of these guys are actually vetting and trying to check that stuff. It's very easy to do a reverse image search, and if, as soon as they pull it up, they know that that's not really you. So that's a dead giveaway that it's going to be a cop, right? So don't do it that way. um I consider using like Face App is a great app where the paid version, you can actually change the way you look. You can de-age it. You can do a lot of different filter things on it to where it's still a picture of you, but it's not. So that's an option, or even just using a Bitmoji. I have those ones in the background. Snapchat kind of started that and made those popular to use. It's very common that people use those. So then it's not really a picture of you, it's just a picture of something. But try to stay away from using, I mean, obviously don't use just a picture of yourself. Make sure that you're modifying it somehow, and enough to where it's not going to be recognizable as you. I use for mine, I have this person does not exist.com is an awesome, it's an AI site that it takes a bunch of different photos of people and it blends them in together and it makes an actual picture of that person. So this is the one that I have on my social media. It's not perfect, as you can tell if you dig into this and look at it super closely. Like, she has two different earrings, right? I've never had that come up as an issue because I don't think people are paying that close attention to it. But that person, that's not an actual person. That is a ton of different people that it made into a person based off of photos that it could find on the internet. It works great. Like I said, the only downside to it is that's the only picture you're going to get. If you refresh the photo, or the page, it's going to give you a brand new photo of a person. You're never going to be able to get that one back. So unless you're using some other AI tools off of that same photo to build your kind of catalog of pictures, just know that that's the only one that you're going to have. The other thing is, again, since it's AI and it's not perfect, it does render weird sometimes. So if I was going to use this photo, like, I don't know what happened to the other person and how they got an eye on their forehead and whatever that is kind of below that. Might want to just crop that out or start all over again. Again, this is just the way that AI kind of is nowadays. It sometimes works great, sometimes not so great. So when we're searching through social media, you probably noticed that not everybody uses their real name. So how are some other ways that we can find that? Uh, Notice a lot of people do like first and middle name. Females especially, that seems to be a popular choice. So searching maybe just for that. Obviously consider maiden names, nicknames, things of that nature. Putting your name in backwards. I've found that I've seen a lot of officers that do that, particularly. So that can be a giveaway, but it is something that you could check. And then again, any type of shortened names or nicknames or monikers, especially the younger crowd, monikers and user handles are like gold because they tend to use those across multiple platforms and it's very much their identity. You're still striking out. Some other ways that you can think about checking is searching friends and family. Like I said, everybody's got that friend that's the oversharer that puts all that stuff out there, or the grandparent that doesn't really know how technology works. And they're sitting there putting posts and dedication posts, say, on your birthday. That's great because if I'm still looking for you, and even if you're not on social media, and they put your name on there and they're saying happy birthday, I can't believe you're 35. Well, now you just gave me your whole date of birth because now I know what day they posted it on, right? So I got month and day, and now they said how old you were. Do some quick math, and now you got a full date of birth. So looking through that kind of stuff is important when you're doing these kind of rabbit hole searches. So already kind of alluded to this, and as far as paying attention to user handles, especially on Facebook. has those vanity handles where you can actually change in the URL to a different name or actually make it that handle. I've seen it before too, where I'll search for a name for somebody, and even though they change their name on their Facebook account, that URL up top still looks the same. And or it has their name in it, and that's how it still actually shows me that person. So this example is for a guy that we had from a case a while back where um, his user handle of this Premier he used across everything, right? He had it on his name, he had it in that vanity handle. When I went to, I took that and threw it into Instagram, found the same exact thing. It didn't even have his name, but I know it's him because obviously the picture is a match. And then at this time it was Twitter still, but X, same thing where it's now I have a potential area code at least. I have a month and day of birth, maybe a website, but all this stuff is coming back. And then there's a phone number that's up in that profile picture as well. One thing I did not state down here at the bottom here is not stories, right? Stories, they have them on, or reels, depending on which platform that you're running off of. Those can be great. I've noticed again, especially in the younger crowd on Instagram, that's all they do is reels. They don't have any posts. It's just reels, and you can get great info off of that. But understand that when you go and look at that reel, they can see who's looking at those reels. And this is where, again, it's important that you're making sure that you're covering your tracks in terms of what you're looking at. And they are looking. I just had a case recently where I started going through this guy's reel to try to figure out who he was, and he ended up blocking me. No message, no nothing, actually just straight up blocked me. I had another dude on TikTok. As soon as I went and looked at him, TikTok is another one that actually will show who's looking at your profile. And he sends me a message right away and says, who the F are you? As soon as I was looking at it. So just know that some of them, especially your criminals that kind of know their way around this stuff, are looking to see who's looking at them. For LinkedIn, great resource. Again, considering they have a job, um, because they give good info. LinkedIn, I would say, especially is good at filtering out accounts that shouldn't be there, and they will kick those. My UC accounts get kicked a lot on LinkedIn. Um, LinkedIn is one that will give away anybody that's looking at your account. So make sure you go into the settings and you put it on private mode. Private mode will make it to where you don't get to see who's looking at your account, but I don't care. It's an undercover account. This is all they're going to see. If they go back to look to see, it just says that someone that was anonymous viewed the account. This is more for Arizona again, but check your states as well. Like for Corporation Commission, we can look that up publicly and actually see if they have any active LLCs within the state. So if you're seeing any type of thing where they say that they're self-employed through whatever this business, go check it out because it lists who that shows as the owner and it gives addresses. So you might be able to find some stuff there. Or if you're lucky, like I have for our boy Robert here that we're looking at, he had his whole resume on his LinkedIn, which now gives me his current address, email, and cell phone. So now, again, if it's somebody who's trying to get a job, they're going to give good info on that. They want to get hired, so they're going to have that on there. So that gives again another layer that you can look at, just sitting right out there. So when we talk about photos, right? If I have this photo of this guy, I mean, outside of being a complete idiot to put this photo up, what other things that are out here that just in the photo alone that I could use and leverage to try to find other info, right? What kind of phone are we dealing with there? I know just from looking at that it's not an iPhone just because of where that camera's placed. That could be a way to go, okay, now I need to find a Gmail because I need to go start hitting up Google and try to find more info. Tattoos. If I can find any type of good descriptive tattoos, I can start searching databases and looking for that and trying to see if I can ID this person. Um, the hat he's wearing, right? He's wearing a Yankees hat. What if I found an account that I think is maybe him, but there's no photo on the profile? It's just a Yankees logo. That could be a good indicator of things like that. So again, what kind of phone they have? Obviously on the Android side, you can get some pretty good info from Google. On the Apple side, hit and miss depending on iCloud settings and things of that nature that you could get. Um, Google used to have really good location data. They've kind of changed some of that now, so it's not nearly as great as it used to be. But the pictures give us a great look at what our subjects look like right now. I've had times where the picture that I've posted and shown, they're wearing the same exact stuff when they end up going and contact that person. So it can be very helpful in terms of hairstyles, glasses, tattoos, all that stuff to be able to help identify. Some other places, Reddit, I found is there's a lot of people on there that like to go on and either troll people or literally just get into arguments over stupid stuff, but they're giving out good info. Again, checking those user handles, you'd be interested to find like what type of subreddits are they on, and what are they talking about, and what info are they giving up in those that they don't think about. Same thing with like YouTube, right? Comment sections and Twitch and things of that nature that you can find different things about your person. So Snapchat, obviously, you if you're able to follow them and see, and they're keeping all that public, you can see where they're posting. But Snapchat also has a great map feature. Instagram now just started that same type of thing where if they're keeping all that open and public, you can literally see on the map where that stuff's showing up, which can be super helpful. They're posting businesses. Go check the business page. If it was at a club, we have a bunch of clubs down in our entertainment district in Scottsdale. Um, go check their page because a lot of them have promoters and people that are going in and taking pictures and adding in that stuff. You might be able to find even more in terms of intel that you can on your people. And then obviously, like I said, Snapchat, the map feature is great for that part. All right, for some helpful tips and tricks and resources, Intel Techniques page is a great OSINT tool that's free. Um, it's inteltechniques.com. Under the tools, there's a example right here to the right. These are all different things you could search. It was free for a while, and then they tried to make it paid, but now it's free again. Mike Pizzell is the one that has this one, but it has pretty much about everything that you can think of to search, and has they do a good job of maintaining it. I found a lot of these ones, they're great for a while, and then something breaks, and then it doesn't work anymore. So this one seems to be updated pretty well. So Intel Techniques is a great one. OSINT Industries is another great one that it's token based, so you can search all of these different things between phone numbers, emails, things of that nature. It is free for law enforcement. You do have to reach out to them with government email, and they'll give you a number of tokens to search. I did just find out in the last conference I was in, somebody said that they, on top of the government email now, that you do have to provide some type of credentials, um, commission card, ID badge, something that shows you work for a particular law enforcement agency. Apparently, they're trying to combat a lot of fraud and things that are going on. But it's a great tool. They have some really good resources in there that you can see. This Ephios.com is another great one, especially for Gmail accounts. That will give you some good free info. If we use that same example of my guy that I showed you before, I got some, he posted a lot of things on his Google account as far as reviews of businesses. And it gave me all that just for free on through his Google account, which was awesome because it helps me show where does he frequent, what are places that he goes to. OSINT framework one is kind of cool. It gives you that spider diagram, like as you click on these, gives you places to go and search and see different tools. Again, some work great, some of them don't. Just depends on what you're going to get. Cash App's another great tool, super law enforcement friendly. If you have the Cash app installed on your phone, one of the things that I find very useful is you can literally just go in and put a phone number in and get back a user. So this is our same guy. If I ran his phone number, says Robert has his Premier handle, and now I also have a picture, his profile photo. I've had the ability to run facial rec on these before, and had success depending on the type of photo that they have. Cash App is also very law enforcement friendly. If you hit them up for any type of search warrants, they give you a lot of really good data. Reverse image search. This one's a cool Google Chrome extension. If you use Chrome, you literally, if you have it on there, can right click on an image and have it, it'll search Google, Bing, Yandex, and TinEye, which is another reverse image search tool. The Yandex search probably won't work because it's Russian based and your IT is probably blocking it, but it's like Russian Google. It'll still try to search it though. It's a cool extension though, and it's also free. Last little bit, when we're looking at houses, Google Street View obviously gives you a good image of a house. It could show you potential ring cameras or security cameras that are up on there that you might need to know about. Obviously, body cam footage would be great to see on the inside of a house, but then think about utilizing real estate sites, Realtor.com, Open Door, Redfin, Zillow, all those ones out there. If that house had been put up on the market anytime recently, there's going to be photos from inside of that house that they're doing. We've matched carpet before because it was so super unique on one case on a CSAM case, just from seeing some of the photos that they had in the house before it was occupied. So think about that kind of stuff. If you can get that other intel to show, hey, he posts from his room. I think the room is actually over here on this part of the house just by looking at Zillow and different floor plans. Bam, I think I did that almost like right on the dot. So if you guys have any questions right now, feel free to throw something in the chat. If not, that QR code that's on there, you can scan that. It'll actually make my contact for you on your phone. It's not malicious. I swear I won't get your credit card info or anything. It's just, it'll give my name, phone number, and email, which is also below if you want to just utilize that. That's my work cell. Feel free to reach out as you're going through this. If you ever have any questions or anything I can help you with, or again, if you want to get any copies of any of this stuff, feel free to reach out and I can get that over to you.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thanks,
chat's
Mike.
disabled. You're welcome.
Yeah, I know. I just read that too. I was able to answer a few questions that came in directly from the Q&A. So sorry to
Okay.
everyone. Obviously we were not aware that chat is disabled. As Mike has offered, I know he is sincere when he says he's happy to follow up with you. So please take that route. Sorry we couldn't get to questions at the moment, but just to let everyone know, this webinar was recorded and it will be on the crimeanalystinresidence.com website. So our CAR website, we usually get those up within about a week. We have 4 prior webinars that are up there as well. You can find those on the resources tab. So that link to the website, a link to a very short evaluation form will be coming your way in just a moment. We do ask you to fill those out because we do appreciate hearing back from you. Really hope that you found this session helpful. I think I've seen this maybe 3 or 4 times now, Mike. I've been fortunate enough, and every time I'm still taking notes for something else that I want to explore. So you are greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And like I said, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I can help you out.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thanks all.